SFI veterans, so many are there, and media persons and others who are participating in this session. I, on behalf of the reception committee and SFI Telangana State Committee, regard it a great privilege and honor to extend warm and hearty welcome to all of you who have come all the way to twin cities of Hyderabad and Secunderabad to attend the 17th All India Conference of SFI. The SFI Telangana Committee gratefully acknowledges the gesture of the SFI All India Committee for giving us this opportunity of hosting the 17th All India Conference in Hyderabad. Hyderabad is the capital city of Telangana now, has a rich legacy in both historical and cultural offering, a shining example of secular and pluralist ethos and traditions. As the legend goes, the city itself was born out of love and wedlock between a Mohammedan prince and later king of the Qutub Shahi dynasty, Muhammad Quli, and a Hindu girl, Bhagamati. The city, Bhagamati is at the birth time of the city was called as Bhagyanagar. Later Bhagamati changed her name as Haidar Begum, then the city name changed as Hyderabad. The city and the people held aloft of the banner of secularism all through 400 years of its existence, true to its name and fame. Except rare instances of contrary behavior under the last Nizam rule, when he propped up communalist vandals known as Razakars to defend his oppressive feudal rule on the princely state. It is in short a mini India accommodating people of different languages and religious groups and veritable culture mosaic. Here Razakars means nowadays this belongs to one religion, they are propaganding right-wing forces. But the Razakars means in Telangana at the time, Nizam state, the landlords of Hindu, the landlords of Muslims, both are combined and their goons all are called Razakars in the time. At the time of British rule in India, it was a princely state ruled by Nizam kings under the British imperialism. In the early 20th century, there was a glorious struggle at Adilabad tribal areas. Kumaram Bhimu, his aims were Jal Jamin Jungle, forest, against the autocratic rule of the Nizam. The glorious peasants' armed struggle in Telangana against the Nizam and the feudal landlords as the historical hallmark in the history. You know, all of you, Telangana means the armed struggle of the peasants. Keton ke, हमको हिंदी थोड़ा थोड़ा आते, I am not able to speak in Hindi well, so that I speak only in English or Telugu. Till today, Telangana means it resembles the armed struggle. This bunch named as Mallu Swarajyam Manch. She is the legend of that time. At the age of 10 years, she joined in that movement, which was conducted under the leadership of the Communist Party, the armed struggle conducted by. Nearly 4,000 peasants youth sacrificed their lives in the armed struggle. This struggle brought the land reforms agenda in the independent India political sphere. At the time of this struggle, in 3,000 villages, 10 lakhs of acres of land owned by feudal lords was distributed to landless peasants. After merging of Hyderabad princely state in the Indian Union, the state legislature abolished the Jagirdari system and conferred ownership rights to the tenant peasants. Here, the armed struggle movement, there were 4,000 peasant youth sacrificed their life. Those are mostly illiterate people in Telangana. Those are mostly illiterate people in Telangana. Those are sacrificed their life. They participated in the armed struggle, men and women also there. As Telangana was under the princely and feudal rule up to 1948 September 17, after the dawn of the independence to our country, its literacy rate was very low, that is only 12%. The reason was that the feudal did not allow the common people to be literate, and the other reason was that the medium of instruction was Urdu language, contrary to the mother tongue of the 90% of the people of Telangana is Telugu. Even though Urdu is a beautiful language, it has rich literature in Urdu, but the most of the people are in Telugu, so that was also hurdle to literate the people. Only one of the progressive achievement is this Usmania University, established in 1918 by the Nizam government. That's a progression. Even now, Telangana literacy rate far behind among the 28 states in the Indian Union. I feel that the 17th SFI All India Conference will stand as a milestone in Indian educational sphere. The conference be holding at the time of the country's ruling by right-wing forces, whose main agenda is inducting Hindutva in the curriculum, and the corporate education institution owners are riding on their shoulders of Hindutva forces, that is, ruling party of the country. I appeal the delegates to discuss in deeply the education issues all over the country and draw a program of unite struggle throughout the country to withdraw the new education policy 2020, revise education policy with constitutional values and the overall development of the Indian society. And also, I request the delegates, now the movement is spreading over the only government institutions, particularly the private institutions are not touching by the SFI. Now it is a big task to you, touch all the students who are studying in any institution all over India, particularly in Telangana. I request the Telangana delegates. We are reception committee very happy to host the conference. Once again, welcome the delegates have come from all over the country. We have done our best with the resources what we have got from Hyderabadis to make your stay here during the conference as comfortable as possible. We are conscious that many lapses may be there in our efforts and arrangements. Not only that, in Telangana, now Telangana government, TRS party is opposing the national government or RSS and BJP, but here there is no independent democracy. They do not following the democracy rules, where we have to conduct any mass organization meetings or any conferences. They don't allow to either decorate with banners or bunties or any other kind of dwaras, anything not permitted. But recently, just we have a slight approach is there. Due to that, by approaching of the government officials and dignitaries, they permitted to us to decorate all these things for 5 days. This is the situation in Telangana. I have heard these words by Biswas in the public meeting also. He had delivered in speech. We are with your commands to serve for these days any inconvenience, please take it with a large heart and spirit of camaraderie. Once again, extend warm revolutionary greetings to you all. At last, పదండి ముందుకు పదండి తోసుకు పాదం పోదాం పై పైకి ఈ దేశంలో విద్యార్థులుగా వెరీ వెరీ యంగ్ సిటిజన్స్గా, ఎందుకంటే మీరందరికీ ఓటక్కు వచ్చి ఉంటుంది, వెరీ వెరీ యంగ్ సిటిజన్స్గా యూ ఫైట్ ఫర్ ద కంట్రీ, యూ మేక్ ద కంట్రీ a secular and social and with socialistic values. I request all of you once again revolutionary greetings to all of you. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, comrades. If once a person become SFI, after that, wherever he or she, whatever may be he or she, whoever may be he or she, if in all kinds of their work they are thinking that they will think about the downgraded people in our country, they will stand for the justice of the needy people. So the biggest example for that is Justice K. Chandru. He was former SFI comrade, and then he was a lawyer, and then he became a justice. And I'm proudly inviting to inaugurate this 17th All India Conference, Justice K. Chandru. I am requesting Justice K. Chandru to inaugurate our conference.
Dear comrades and friends, this is a Garvapsi moment for me. 52 years before, in the first SFI conference, I was a delegate from Tamil Nadu. That conference in Thiruvananthapuram in 1970 saw many tall student leaders, Comrade Bhiman Basu, Comrade Manik Sarkar, Comrade Baby, and several other comrades who later became political leaders in their respective state, and therefore, to some extent, the student movement becomes the factories for leading the nation the next year or the future. During our conference in Thiruvananthapuram, we were also guided by tall leaders like EMS, A.K. Gopalan, P. Sundaraya, and several other leaders were there to guide the nascent movement which was started. Before 1969, student federations were there for respective states. In 1969, in Kolkata, then it was Calcutta, we had a first organizing meeting where we decided we should have one All India forum, and the name was Student Federation of India, SFI. SFI from those days till now, this 2022, in the last 52 years, it has seen growth in leaps and bounds, and I am proud that I was also part of this movement several years ago, at least half a century ago. The training that I got from the student movement, the knowledge I gained from the student movement, the experience which came to me while I being a leader of the student movement, that helped me in the later years when I chose the profession of lawyer and thereafter as a judge of the Madras High Court. I am proud to say that it was a training ground for young minds to become the leaders of tomorrow in different fields. It may not be the same political field, it can be field anywhere. You must know one thing, that you can serve this nation from any service. It doesn't mean only political service. There are areas and areas where we require leadership, where we require vision, where we require perception, where we require ideology, and therefore I wish you and I wish this conference, the 17th conference, all success, and it will also carry the message for to have the three slogans that you have coined: educate all, employment for all, and unite all. These three slogans, when it was coined, in fact in 1970, it was only the first two slogans. We were concentrating on education for all and employment for all. The third slogan, which has now been there in the new century, is the most important slogan, and I will also deal with why it has become more important than any other slogan. When we first started this conference in 1970, we had three left governments in this country. We had Jyoti Basu ruling West Bengal, we have EMS ruling the Kerala state, we have Manik Sarkar. Before that, comrade was there, Nirpen Chakravarti, Chief Minister of Tripura. In 1970, we also had several international movements, not just the national issues. We were also directly or indirectly covered with several international issues like Vietnam War and several other issues. And today, looking back on that, we do not have any government, left government in this country. We have a different government here. We do not have the tall leaders that we had in those days. We had a different kind of leaders. But nevertheless, what is redeeming, what is inspiring, what is encouraging is the tremendous increase in the strength of the SFI and the voice of SFI reverberating from all campuses in India. We were a very small organization in the 70s, and in 2000 we can proudly say we occupy many campuses today, many colleges and educational institutions, and in terms of strength, in terms of following, we have improved our might. We have been very impressive, and therefore I am confident that this young blood, this young leadership, this young mind will work for a change in this country and make the three slogans a realistic one. Now when we come to issue of the three issues, we must also think of what has happened earlier. Unless we look back, unless we see our past, unless we see what has happened in this country, we will never learn what is going to be tomorrow. It is just failing to read our history will also make us to do many mistakes. It is in this sense I want to draw some small inspiration to you to look back what has happened in this country. When we were all students in the early 70s, there was an internal emergency declared by Mrs. Gandhi. The emergency, there was no emergency, much more so to say internally India was so turbulent that it required emergency powers. But on the other hand, on 26 June 1975, suddenly an emergency was declared. You may not know what is emergency because you are a new generation. But emergency, they also suspended the fundamental right. It is not mere suspension of fundamental right, followed by that a complete censorship of all newspapers. All news magazines were censored, pre-censored by the central government. On top of all this, top leaders, political leaders in this country were all put in jail without trial, without an inquiry, on the orders of a district magistrate. And many of our comrades of the CPM, Comrade A.K. Gopalan, Comrade Jyotirmai Basu, who was the leader of the parliament in the opposition those days, they were all detained. Even Advani, Vajpayee, Narendra Modi were detained during that time. Whether it is left or right, Mrs. Gandhi, doesn't matter. She wanted to hold on to power, and therefore she said there will be emergency. Now this emergency, for the first time told that under this new dispensation, how to survive. Nobody has expected that there will be such a great deal of oppression among the working people. There will be trade union activities will be banned. The Kisan Sabha activities will be banned. All in the name of saving one leader. And the 21 months of dark days, it was many SFI comrades who worked behind the scene, out of focus, out of light. They worked and fought against the emergency. They defeated the censorship rules. They helped the leaders who were in jail. They also went to the people who were at the time, the leaders were very scarce and not available. And the SFI allowed the spirit of freedom, the spirit of liberty to glow very, very well, very, very high. Therefore, after 21 months, we saw a new government. During this 21 months, the Constitution was amended by the 42nd Amendment Act. Several features of the Constitution were all changed because there was nobody to oppose in the Parliament. And the Parliament was only a rubber stamp for the Mrs. Gandhi and her Congress coterie. Now, when Congress was defeated in 1977 in the new elections, there was a hodgepodge government, Janata Party government, of course supported by the left parties. That government redeemed and brought amendment to the Constitution, 44th Amendment, and some of the provisions were restored. We all thought that for once democracy was put on rails and therefore there won't be any harm. Little we realized that there were forces which are sneaking, there are forces which are hiding, there are forces which are willing to take over the government in future. And that is how we come to a new stage where after emergency, the lessons we learned, the fascist, semi-fascist rule that was there, which was defeated even during the electoral processes, was now sought to be converted in favor of the very same forces which want to reinforce these measures. So when emergency went off, when Janata Party was also came and lasted only for few months, we saw a new political force emerging. That force was not merely a political party, it was a social force, it was a religious force, it was a force of a rightist ideologies which were willing to take over this country from all the progressive that has done over the period in this country. Over 25 years of several changes were sought to be redone after this. In 1991, you all knew, on 6th December 1991, the Babri Masjid was demolished on the plea that there was a temple below the Babri Masjid. That case was going on in the court, in the very many courts, in the lower court, then the High Court, then Allahabad full bench, then Supreme Court. It went on for several years, not several decades. Now when the Babri Masjid was demolished, there are two things you must know. The campaign to demolish a religious structure was used as a political slogan, and therefore you must also understand that was a time they do not need any emergency. They were willing to convert the minds of the ordinary people to think that this country belongs to a certain faith, and therefore those who do not belong to those faith, they must be driven out of this country or must be silenced. When the Babri Masjid demolished, before that you saw the Radha Yatra of L.K. Advani. He said, at all costs we will build the temple. This is the slogan he made. In every meeting that he addressed, whether in Gujarat or in UP or anywhere this Radha Yatra went, he went on saying that the constitution and the courts cannot solve the problem of the people. The faith of the people cannot be tested in court. These were the two slogans that he advanced during the Radha Yatra. And as pre-planned, the Saffron Brigade, led by the RSS, demolished that mosque. And today, what we find, at that time, the UP was controlled by the BJP party. The Chief Minister was Kalyan Singh. There was an apprehension that there is a government which is bound to respect the constitution, as a government which has to protect the property, as a government which will have to protect the legislation, as a government which will have to protect the places of worship in this country. They asked Kalyan Singh, what are you going to do with the danger that is being posed on the mosque? He gave an undertaking, not a oral undertaking. He gave a written affidavit before the Supreme Court that the mosque will not be demolished, that the UP government will take all steps to protect the place of worship of a particular religion. Within few weeks, the mosque was demolished. Every television, every electronic medium was showing that people who are wearing saffron cloth, having a crowbar, not even modern bulldozer. Today, The democracy is the symbol is a bulldozer. In those days, they were able to do it with a crowbar, and they demolished that mark. A petition was filed in the Supreme Court that how a chief minister was watching a building is being brought down despite the undertaking given before the Supreme Court. And Kalyan Singh was called, summoned for the first time in India. A chief minister was summoned to the Supreme Court, and he was asked why this has happened. He has no answer. Then what did the Supreme Court do? They put him in jail just for one day till the raising of the court. That is, he has to be present in the court and go back in the evening. Several litigants every day come to court and go in the evening. And Kalyan Singh came in the morning and went in the evening. Though on record, a chief minister was punished for violating the undertaking given before the court. And now what we find, the same man who is no more, posthumously given Padma Shri award. Who are the Supreme Court to punish you? We are here to give you any kind of award. Padma Shri, Padma Vibhushan. Tomorrow they may give Bharat Ratna to Advani also. Who knows? Today we find a situation where the courts are not matters. The laws are not matters. What matters is their faith. Not the faith of everybody, the faith of the majority. That we saw when the Babri Masjid Ram Janmabhoomi dispute came to the Supreme Court. We saw a Chief Justice constituting a bench, 7 judges hearing day in, day out. Hundreds and thousands of documents are filed. Hundreds and thousands of statements were read. Matter went on for 2 months. And we saw the judgment, a wonderful judgment, an anonymous but a unanimous judgment. For the first time we saw the judgment doesn't contain who wrote the judgment. Everybody signed. Even today nobody knows who wrote the judgment. And the judgment stands today. You may not read 1,000 paragraphs. It's all boring, verbose. The last paragraph is important. The last paragraph in Ram Janmabhoomi judgment says that we believe that the Hindus were worshipping in this place. It has been proved, not by any document. It was a property dispute. In a property dispute, you need title deeds. You need original documents. But you don't need all that. There's a faith that's been proved before oral evidence. Today the Supreme Court has rewritten what is the property law. What is the law in this country of evidence? They have said the faith is enough. Now does it mean every faith you will protect? Does it mean secularism means only Hindutva agenda? Today we saw, to our disappointment, a judgment has come where a new temple has come in the ashes, in the debris of another person's place of worship. And now followed by this inspiration, there is attempt to demolish the mosque in Mathura, the mosque in Varanasi. Cases have been filed because they are more confident with the judiciary. After all, judiciary is there, appointed by them. Today they are itching to appoint every judge also. That's why you find law ministers saying, hereafter we will not allow this method of appointment. Whatever may be the debate, today there is one thing you must realize, at least Indira Gandhi declared an emergency. At least Indira Gandhi imposed a censorship by a written order. At least Indira Gandhi put everybody in jail by a written detention order. That was the emergency of those days. Today we are having an undeclared emergency in this country. And therefore, where do we go from today? When we talk about educate all or employment all, what is that we are in store for us? In the same 90s, the Narasimha Rao government, when you go from here to the airport, the entire 20 kilometers called as Narasimha Rao Expressway, the same expressway led to India to ruins in the name of liberalization, in the name of privatization, in the name of globalization. The LPG gas has surrounded India. Every private sector has been encouraged. Every public sector undertaking. Those were the days people used to say that loss-making units should be sold away. The Navaratnas should be protected. What is Navaratna? 9 companies of the government sector were doing very well. It cannot be privatized. So they said Navaratna will remain. Today there are no Navaratnas. Like Kohinoor diamond went away to British Empire. This Navaratna also going to Adanis and Ambanis. Now where do we go? Today when we talk about employment to all, is there a guarantee for employment to all in this country? When the public sector, which is considered as the steel frame of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru once said, it is the modern temples of India. Now all modern temples are all closed. You have only Ram Janmabhoomi is the way. Now, in this context, when we talk about employment to all, we must also decide how will that employment is going to come today. When all the public sector, which generates not only wealth for this country, are going to be given away to private sector, are going to be owners of. In fact, I remember in the early 70s, we used to say that don't make this country a monopoly country. This monopoly bourgeois landlord structure must go. The Tata Birla controlling the government must go. Today, the same Tata Birlas are nowhere there. We have Adanis and Ambanis. So we have Gujarat capitalists. Now, in those days, when they talked about liberalization and globalization, they also signed agreement with the international banking institutions, the IMF, the TRIPS and the GATT treaties, which said that India must open all its public sector to private sector. They have now denationalized the general insurance. They have also partly outsourced the Indian railways. They have completely outsourced all the harbors and ports in this country. They have also outsourced all the airlines in this country, all the airports. I remember when in the Thiruvananthapuram airport, you would have heard last month, it has been managed by the Airport Authority of India. The lands were given by the Kerala government. And when they want to denationalize, privatize, bids were called for. But the Kerala government was not allowed to bid because they don't want to allow a government to take over another denationalized institution. So it was a fight between the left front government of the Kerala and the Adani who was willing to take over the flight. They filed a case last week in the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, Supreme Court dismissed the case saying we will not allow the Kerala government to take over the airport. It will go to Adani's. Same thing has happened some 25 years before when the second government of the Nayanar government was there. There was a tea estate owned by the Tatas that was taken over by the Kerala government and called as a Kannandevan estate. And that was struck down by the Supreme Court. Therefore, when we talk about privatization, it is not just the Narasimha Rao followed by Modi and other Modi Shah companies. It's also judiciary completely supporting this kind of new actions. Therefore, where do we go from here? We are now pushed to the wall. We took up the judiciary. We tell them that the Indian Constitution, as it evolved, as it is amended, the preamble says it is a democratic, socialist republic, secular socialist republic country. What is socialism? In 1976, a case was filed in the Supreme Court challenging some of the amendment to the labor laws. Before the Supreme Court, it was argued that India is a socialist country. You see the preamble. Preamble to the Constitution is like a keyhole. It's as you enter the house, you see the keyhole, you see whether anybody is there, whether the light is on. Like that, when you see the Constitution, when it talks about socialism in the preamble, and the part 4 of the Constitution under Article 39 talks about all the resources of India must go to the people of India. There can never be monopoly. When we have so many things written into the written Constitution, and the judges who take oath under the Constitution, they ask the question, what is socialism? It is a catchword. It is fashionable to say socialism. It means different things to different people. Yes, definitely socialism means to Tatas and Birlas, Adanis and Ambanis, different meaning only. To the working class, it means the wealth of this nation should be with the working people of this country. This is the argument which Supreme Court rejected. When many public sector, profit-making public sector were disinvested, this was challenged. How do you disinvest public wealth? They said, court cannot interfere. This is a policy decision. Now, carte blanche powers have been given to the executive government, and they can do whatever they want. I appeal to you, when you discuss employment for all, you should inevitably think of the privatization, globalization, liberalization, and disinvestment that is going on in this country without check. Now, on top of all this, the labor laws have been amended. We had some 29 labor laws. Now this government says, I am going to modernize, I am going to shorten, I am going to comprehensively decide. Therefore, 4 labor laws were passed in 2019 without any discussion, which are yet to be notified. Even the ILO has objected to the amendment. Now what the government is saying, they are talking to all the state government, because without state government, they cannot implement these labor laws. But you find one after the other state governments have been purchased There are Ayaram, Gayaram. MLAs were paid monies. In Karnataka, it was said each MLA was ordered some 20, 40, 30 crores to change over to the party. Every government has been destabilized. Every state government has been destabilized. If they are unable to do any destabilization, they send governors. You have in Kerala Arif Muhammad Khan, a discredited politician. You have one R.N. Ravi in Tamil Nadu, an old IPS officer who was sent out of Nagaland. You have one Soundararajan here in Telangana. She is a doctor by profession. Whatever may be their profession, today they have one profession, carry out the agenda of RSS, sitting in the Raj Bhavan. They changed the name of Rajpath. It's called now Karyapath. Why don't they say Karya Bhavan? Because they are already doing RSS Karyam in sitting in those bhavans. Every state government is now sought to be destabilized by the actions of the governor. Therefore, we cannot say that has nothing to do with us, that's politics. Everything is related to our slogan. Everything is related to our future. Today, the survival of non-BJP government is an important segment in the maintenance of democracy in this country. Therefore, you should please understand, when we talk about employment, we should talk about PSUs, disinvestment, LPG, the role of governor, the role of state government, and the autonomy, and the state autonomy, and the sharing of fiscal powers. Now, these are some of the issues which we can't divorce and discuss. Give me a job. Where will the job come in? It will not come with the God. It will not come from the heaven. It has to be created here. For that, you must have a creative conditions that should be created. And therefore, I implore to you that discussing on employment, discuss on other economic issues. Coming to educate all. We have been showing, even 1970 we had a slogan that all people up to 14 years should be given education. That was part of the constitution. Article 46 said children between the age of 6 to 14 will be educated free of cost, compulsorily. But then they said it's only policy. In 1999, they introduced Article 21A, providing for compulsory universal free education for all from the age group of 4 to 14. Now that article is there in 1999. That is by law. The law comes later, not 1 or 2 years. After 10 years, in 2009, they passed the law. That law was challenged by private management. In Rajasthan Private Management Association, Supreme Court upheld the law. But while upholding the law, they said it is not the duty of the state to provide educational institution. It can be done by private employer, private institution also. So today you will have a LKG free of cost from government school to paying 1 month per month, 1 lakh per month per year. There are schools today. When this was pointed out to the Supreme Court, unfortunately, Chief Justice Kapadia said the language used in 21A, provide, may provide. May provide does not mean they should provide. It can be provided by some other source also. So it is now a license for a privatization. You will find everywhere, in every street, even in Telangana, there are so many nursery schools. There are so many private matriculation schools. There are so many ICSE schools. Charging heavily. In Tamil Nadu, we find the statistics, 41.2% parents are sending their children to private payment schools. We do not have. Then what happens to 21A? What happened to compulsory free universal education up to the age of 14 years? It's only a myth. The interpretation given by the Supreme Court was rather unfortunate, where they made this country into two Indias. Poor children will go to municipal school, poor children will go to government school, and rich kids will go to private school and private educational institution. So we have two Indias today. When we talk about the law enforcement in this country, it also depends the ideology of the judges. When we say provide means, why not you say they shall provide? It is your duty to provide education in this country to all children, irrespective of the economic status. Now this is something which you will have to think. Education for all. How does education for all come? According to their lordships of the Supreme Court, education can come through private sources also. You pay through your nose. You are paying for the bus, you are paying for the aircraft, you also pay for your education. And today 41.2% parents are paying through their nose to get their children educated. They think that's the only way to build their wealth. That we can't find the parents' fault. we'll have to find the government and top of that the judiciary. For a small digression, let me take the example of America. In 1965, before 1965, in America, the schools were run on color basis. The blacks will go to black school. Thurgood Marshall was one of the champion of ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union. They point a case for the first time in US Supreme Court, saying that if you want to have one America, there must be one school system. Irrespective of color, irrespective of the background, there must be one school. Then only you will have one America we will have. Like in India, we have 2-3 Indias we have. We have a poor India, we have a middle class India, we have a rich India also we have. Like you have a Gwalior, Doon School, you have a Ajmer, Mayo College. They will produce prime ministers, they will produce cabinet ministers. What will the other school produce? They will produce karamcharis. That is the kind of thing that we have. This case, for the first time, was taken up by the US Supreme Court. Previously, they never heard any public interest litigation. This is the first time they heard public interest litigation, brought in by some other respectable organization like ACLU, who did a lot of work to show by statistics that black children never knew who's the white children and white children never knew who's the black children. Therefore, indisputably, there were two Americas, and the US Supreme Court took interest and then found out that we must have a mixed school. When they announced there must be a mixed school, it is not only the government which was against, even the parents opposed. They said, my son will go to that school, he will get mugged by the black children. Similarly, black mothers said, my children go to white school, my children will get mugged. Then somebody said, if these two schools has to be exchanged and become a colorless school or a multiracial school, how will we go? Where is the transport? Then the US Supreme Court very, for the first time said, you allow buses to be plied, free buses, for taking children from one corner. So that judgment, Brown versus Board of Education, is also called bus law. Because the US Supreme Court said, in order to make all schools colorless, take the children by buses and bring them back. The American president said that this judgment cannot be enforced. The American judges did not bat an eyelid. They told the US president, if you do not implement our orders, we will call the US Marines, US Army, we will call the Army and implement the judgment. From 1965, the judgment has slowly led, and today in America, you do not have color schools. You have only mixed schools. It's all because in the First Amendment, the US Supreme Court said that we must have one US, one United States, and not two states. And today in India, we find the same 21A as interpreted by the lordship of the Supreme Court, that we have 2-3 Indias today. This is the state of affairs. When you talk about educate all, how are you going to educate all? Do you mean that boy will go to municipal school and he will continue to be in that school? And this boy will go to Doon school or Ajmer school and become President of India or Prime Minister of India? Now this is something which you will have to think. Educate all means who is going to educate? Is it the state? Can the state abdicate its power? Or only think of several competitive examinations to filter even these children coming to doctors, even these children coming to engineering college? You have entrance examinations now being there. Of course, some state governments are opposing, some state governments have not voiced their concern. But what is important today, that what was the power of the state before 1976 under list 25 entry, list 2 of entry 25. Education was with the state government. Now that was taken over by the central government. Even to start a municipal school, you will have to take permission. Even to employ a teacher, she has to get license from Bangalore, from the teacher recruitment board. Today, there is an assault on the autonomy of the state. Today, every education is sought to be misdirected or directed to be controlled in such a way that the central government will have all the power in this country. And the first demand, if you want to have educate all, the demand must be two, that 21A must be rewritten to overrule this the Indian Supreme Court judgment, and we must also have entry 25 list 2 to be brought to the state list and not the concurrent list. the state government must have power to make legislation on the education. Without that, I do not think we will achieve this slogan of employ all, educate all. And even then you find that the present government, which is in Delhi, they have more love for the education because it is only through ideology you can corrupt. In fact, our governor, R.N. Ravi, ex-IPS officer, I don't know how he got IPS, he told last week that the children should learn Bhagavad Gita so that they can learn physics better. I don't know where you get that. That you want to learn physics, you must learn Bhagavad Gita. This is what we find. They rewrite every textbook that is possible. An ideological corruption is now sought to be introduced in three forms. In the University Act, that the governor nominates the chancellors, vice chancellor. They dismiss professors. Now where do they get the power? Now in the educational bodies like UGC, IASCTE and the Indian History Congress and several international educational bodies, now they push their own people. How do they push? They have power to appoint. Who can question? Nobody can appoint. It's a policy matter. And therefore, there is a sort of a subversion of the dissemination of knowledge to the students. That is now taking place blatantly. It is just not the textbook. It is just not the examination. You find in Karnataka, 20,000 girls were not able to write their examination because they are wearing a hijab and coming, a small kerchief on their head. How does it affect Modi? How does it affect Amit Shah? How does it affect the Mumbai government that a girl comes with a kerchief on her head? They say indiscipline. How do you bring in discipline? We bring in uniform. Now they talk about uniform civil code. There in Karnataka, they prescribe the uniform for the school children. All right, I am also wearing a uniform. On top of that, I am having a small coverage of my hair. Now they say no, it's indiscipline. And Karnataka government said discipline means discipline. 20,000 girls have not written their 10th standard examination. When you talk about educate all, when Article 21A talks about compulsory education, you prescribe a uniform and then say, don't come to our school. Is it not an exclusive government? In my days, in my school days, I know many boys will come without their shirt and even their trousers there will be a lot of holes. No teacher sent them out. Indiscipline never said. In fact, the teachers went from house to bring children to the schools. It was an inclusive policy. Today we have an exclusive policy. Exclude whom? Not the majority. It is the minorities of this country. In fact, Rajinder Sachar committee said that the Muslim women are to be educated because they have the lowest percentage of education, literacy in this country. On the other hand, you find Karnataka government say we will not allow Muslim girls to come in. Now this is something, when we talk about educate all, how are you going to educate all? Is it going to be on a racial basis or a religious basis or some other basis? Is the Sangh Parivar will decide these matters. So when you talk about educate all, you should take that slogan. Now coming to the last slogan, unite all. This was not there in the 70s when we passed the resolution. We hardly thought about danger to the unity of this country. Today that becomes very important slogan because today there is a talk, one leader, one nation, one language. Now they say one food also. Now in this country, when we talk about unity, in fact, Modi goes on telling Vasudeva Kudumbam. Vasudeva Kudumbam, the whole world is one unity. Now that is not there. You cannot have a Sangh Parivar family and the rest of them are outside. That is something which is important. If more than anything else, even before you talk about educate all and employ all, you should talk about unite all. Unite all is the most important slogan. And why should the students think of that? The students are the next rulers. The students are the next take over this country. It is this country we are leaving to you. We are leaving to you where there is a greatest danger to the religious minorities of this country. In fact, our governor, I keep on referring to Ravi, he is not a great scholar or does not mean, he is just an ordinary policeman who was in Nagaland, was sent to Madras. Now he tells that the constitution, there is no dharma in this constitution. He has taken oath under the constitution. He says there is no dharma. The second thing he says, when you talk about secularism, it is not defined in the constitution. First of all, you must know one thing. Constitution has got 395 sections. 395 articles. It is not what is written in the constitution, it is what the judges say. Article 142 says the judgment rendered by the Supreme Court is binding on all. So the judges say what is secularism. There was an occasion in 1994, in Bombay case, 9 judges sat together and in their judgment they wrote in 1994, Bombay versus Union of India, secularism means the government keeps away from all religion. At the same time treat all religion equally. This is what secularism means. But we have a governor sitting in Rajbhavan says, Constitution doesn't say where is secularism. Now this is some kind of a disinformation which is calculatively spread among the society, not by ordinary people, not by some RSS pracharak. It is by the governor sitting in the gubernatorial post and having the orders of the president and sent by the Home Ministry by Amit Shah. They start propagating. Now this slogan is slowly rearing its head all over, that you and me, we are different. This country belongs to one person, the others, the rest of them can go to Pakistan. If I don't accept, you must go to Pakistan. Who are you to send that to Pakistan? This country belongs to me as much as it belongs to you. Now this is something with the students will have to start taking. Now there is an assault. There is an attack against the minorities, blatant attack on these minorities, their place of worship. Now yesterday I saw in the Facebook, they were having Christmas prayers because Christmas is going to come on 25th December. They were having the previous 2 Sundays are more sacred for them. And there are religious congregations in a church. All gun-wielding policemen were standing in all the gates. Do we think in this country to worship, I must have policemen to safeguard my interest? Does it not Article 25 talk about right to have a freedom of conscience, right to have faith in any religion, right to propagate? When you have given a constitutional right, you support the right by your own private armies. You support the right by your own private goons. Now this is something danger. Therefore, very rightly, in the 17th convocation, this 17th conference, you have made a slogan, unite all. This slogan is our first slogan. Without that slogan, the other 2 slogans are only empty slogans. Therefore, I appeal to you that today you have assembled here and the next few days you will be discussing most important issues that are affecting this country, not just the students, because we are part of the society. And when you are going to say that what is going to be our next stand, you must also focus that this country will protect all, irrespective of the religion, and we will protect them as the Constitution has assured them. And this Constitution will never be supported by any saffron brigade. And with this, I wish your conference all success. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. So when we were discussing about inaugurating of 17th All India Conference, in our discussion, 2 names came. One, the person is here, already he delivered his inaugural speech. Justice Chandru, former SFI leader also. And second one, it is Tista Satilwal. We know that social activist who is fighting directly against RSS, Sangh Parivar, Narendra Modi, BJP government continuously for more than last 2 decades. Still, today also, we talked with her. She was ready to come and inaugurate our conference. But the thing was, today also, she have to go to that present in court. That's why she is not here. In her absence, she gave a video message to us. So now we are playing that video message as part of our inaugural speech.
Greetings, salutes, salams from Mumbai. I want to begin by just greeting with a lot of enthusiasm and admiration the 750 delegates of the All India Conference of the Students' Federation of India, the 17th National Conference. I'd also like to start by paying my humble respects to Justice Chandru, my fellow panelist speaker at this inaugural session, who has been not just a household name in Tamil Nadu, but for many of us, closely involved in the social justice and human rights movement, a person we deeply, deeply admire. Friends, we meet on an occasion at the end of the year 2022, which actually sees us at the end of 7.5, 8 years of a particular regime at the center and in several Indian states. What has this regime and its politics, hardline, autocratic politics, done for the student community, for the young community, for the thinking community, for education? I think let's begin with that, and then there's so much more to speak about. I think I'd like to say that around 2012 and 2013, it is organizations like the Students' Federation of India and other student organizations all over the country that launched a unique movement called Occupy UGC movement. And what was that movement? That movement was about reclaiming the right of the student community to have a say in the policies of the government. What are those policies? The policies are what constitutes higher education, what are the kind of scholarships that should or should not be given, who is entitled to the scholarships. India is a diverse country, fractured and structured on caste, class, community and gender. Do the policies of the UGC and the Human Resources Development and the central government reflect trying to bring this stratified student community from very class and caste structures on an even footing and give them the kind of head start that certain communities and castes need. We saw what the kind of brutal attack that this regime launched, Hyderabad Central University, Pondicherry, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Assam, Kashmir, across the country, wherever there were students' movements, students' organizations, teachers' movements, teachers' organizations, a brutal attack was launched. And a narrative is sought to be created that the student community, the vibrant student community, which are thinking minds, political minds, social minds, cannot question structures of governance, cannot question the policies of the government. I always believe that the first real opposition to this proto-fascist regime came from the student community, came from the young people, and I believe that all of you today represent that resistance and challenge. So some of us who are also fellow travelers, fellow activists, fellow concerned individuals and movements for constitutional and human rights of all Indians, deeply, deeply admire the courage that the young people of India have shown. So salutes for that. Friends, we are meeting today at a time when India, successful electoral democracy, we cannot doubt that. Elections are held and across states, we've just completed certain elections and more elections will be held next year. But we've also been dubbed, this country of ours, this vast nation of ours, that is supposed to be judged on how constitutional mores of equality, non-discrimination, parity, protection of life and security of all Indians by the state and by the police. A country should be judged on those mores, but we are being increasingly judged and called partly free, a partially free electoral autocracy. And what do these terms mean? Friends, I was just a little bit younger than you all, 16 years old, when India first experienced and had a brush with dictatorship, autocratic dictatorship. I'm talking about the years of 1975 and 77, when the declaration of the Indian emergency. And we were also fortunate with, like you have been, a little bit more fortunate than you, because I believe the young people today are more criminalized.
మైక్ కావాలి మైక్ కనెక్ట్ మైక్ 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 కనెక్ట్ మైక్
So comrades, there is some technical issues, so we couldn't completely play that video, but that we are announcing this All India Conference of 17th All India Conference of Students Federation of India inauguration